Congratulations. My brother-in-law said, there was a young lady who had a terrible accident, was rushed to the hospital, and it was believed that she was dead. They worked and revived her, put her back together again. But before they could get her back together, she passed on into the other world and met up with the voice of God. She asked a question to that great light on that great throne. Is this it? The voice said, no. I'm sending you back to the world to make a difference. Shortly after that voice talked to her, she came to herself. Great pain, but she realized she was still alive. And they worked on that woman for weeks. When they finally got her together, she decided to stay in the hospital for a while and have liposuction, breast augmentation. Decided to tighten up this and that and a little of the other. Sent for her hairdresser to come change her color, do her hair perfectly. She asked her best friend to bring one of her best dresses because she was to be discharged in a day or so. The bandages were gone. Her chin was smooth again. Hair was a beautiful color and just splendidly put together. Instead of rolling out of the hospital in a wheelchair, as is their custom, she insisted that she would walk. She put on her shoes with the red bottoms and switched to the front door, to the unbridled attention of every man in the hall. Going across the street to catch the cab she saw, she just put up her finger in the cab. 3 of them stopped. And around the corner came an ambulance in a hurry, hit her and ran over and killed her. She got back to the great throne and began to protest. Thought you said that I had some time to go back and make a difference. The voice answered, I did. She said, what happened? Said, my death angel didn't recognize you. You've been ordained tonight and dressed up in these new cassocks and surplices and tippets. Your brisk collars are wrapped around your necks, fastened with new buttons. All the symbols have been given to you. I pray, God, that in the next year or so, we'll be able to find you again, at least visiting the convocation, and that it not be said, I didn't recognize you. By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months of his parents because they saw he was a proper child, and they were not afraid of the king's commandment. By faith, Moses, when he was come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer the affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season, esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures of Egypt, for he had respect unto the recompense of the reward. By faith he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. Through faith he kept the Passover and the sprinkling of blood, lest he that destroyed the firstborn should touch them. And by faith they passed through the Red Sea as by dry land, which the Egyptians essaying to do were drowned. Hebrews chapter 11, verses 23 through 29. Bishop Hilliard, I want to talk for a few minutes I want to talk from the subject, hiding Moses. It's a convocation, so I have to give the president of the convention a copy of these scattered thoughts. Bishop Hilliard is my friend. He's an excellent example. I don't want to waste any time doing a lot of extra talking. I want to get right to the thoughts, finish it, and go to bed. I'm 73 years old and I'm past my bedtime. I just got a new great-grandson yesterday. One of the priorities of my ministry has been the care and nurturing of children, especially those of the household of faith. I see children as the world's greatest commodity, and the kingdom of God had better get busy recognizing what Satan recognizes. Won't take me long. There are no hoopalistics in this message. I will not be catching my ear in the key of A flat. I will just say it and sit down. One can walk the streets of any city and see children at risk. Children have become one of the highest risk factors in law enforcement because some smart adult discovered he can use children to do his behest. And there is that small likelihood that the child will not be prosecuted. Children are becoming one of the increasing statistics in the rise in crime in America, and as we have all seen, even in the Middle East. Youth pastors have served our young for some years in the churches and in their professional world, some as public school teachers. And they've reported to me that the children are the nation's most vulnerable. They're starved for food, they're starved for love, they're starved for affection. They're often handled as pawns in chess games by unwitting parents who wish to bring pain to each other. They are the least considered when we make major life-changing decisions. They're abused physically, mentally, and spiritually. Children are molested and no one believes them. So they keep their little horror stories to themselves in hopes that the picture or the movie will just go away. But it never does without some professional help. Children are now having children without any information on the true meaning of parenting or mentoring. Our children have been introduced to a world or a society that has no absolutes, no morals, no sense of decency, and they resent anyone who does have them or who attempts to introduce such foolishness into their world. The children have become self-absorbed. You've been ordained, I'm giving you somebody to go work on. They're self-absorbed, self-centered, and anything else that begins with self. And it's the fault of our generation. In the late 1950s and early 60s, our women pulled their bras off and threw away their underwear, disposed of all similitudes of decent behavior, and then sat still and allowed the intellectual community to declare that God was dead. We lost our sense of patriotism, and we discovered all of America's warts at one time. We once had hard-working men and pretty women. Now we have hard-working women and pretty men. The entertainers of our times have begun saying anything over the public airwaves, and they call it First Amendment rights. And now the village idiots are buying and selling guns of every stripe, shooting whomsoever they please. And the clowns in Washington are calling it Second Amendment rights. Music changed from crooning love songs to filthy lyrics that would make Adolf Hitler blush. There's no longer any class in art, and culture went to hell in a handbasket overnight. Did you notice I didn't ask for any amens? And all the while, our children were watching And they were learning how to run this world as we introduced it. Since academia killed God, and I say that rather loosely, there was no need to determine right from wrong anymore. Murder and mayhem became our national pastime, and our children were watching. We turned them into latchkey kids, left them to raise themselves. Uncles molested their nieces, fondled their nephews. Fathers who were assigned to protect their daughters raped their daughters while their sons watched. I want to sidebar for a moment. I was raised in a home where my father used my sister, his daughter, as his personal paramour. And when I asked him one day why he did that, he said it was my job to teach her about sex. Thank God that pervert died and went to hell, but he left a scarred girl in the earth. And today my sister, my only natural sister, is a bitter soul. She has no respect for men. She hates men. I guess she loves me, and I say that carefully. I stay out of her way. She had a husband, and he came along and began to try to do what my father did. He was going to beat her. She told him, hold it just for a minute, and went upstairs. Came back down with a pistol and shot both of his kneecaps out. And today he has the funniest walk. Last time I saw him, he asked me, how's Ann doing? I said, you don't want to know. Just hop along, hop along. Y'all laughing, but it was serious in that house. The adults destroyed the children. The adults created drugs and the needle, not the children. The children were suddenly taught that the shortest distance between 2 points was no longer a straight line. They were taught to lie and steal and cheat and disrespect everybody, and they were taught it by adults. Somewhere along the line, we failed to hide Moses. You heard me read the opening verse of the text. And the first thing you look at is the unusual birth circumstances around the boy Moses. He's born into slavery in the middle of a male slaughter ordered by the government. Government-sanctioned murder. Moses was tapped to die, but the text opens by saying that he was hid for 3 months. Something has to be said for his wise mother. Jochebed saw in her baby what no other could possibly see. This woman has a baby when it's forbidden for Jews to populate. She gives birth at a time when the government had issued a decree demanding the slaughter of all male children under the age of 2 years. talking about birth control. But because she was a wise parent, she knew she had to protect what God had given to the world. The king, Pharaoh, didn't know that the boy was born, but his mother knew. And when his parents saw him, the Hebrew text in Exodus 2:2 said, she perceived that he was a goodly child. This is the implication that his parents saw in him the deliverer that Israel was going to need. And the word goodly in the Exodus text, one man has argued that it meant anointed. Pardon me. He had on him the Spirit of God for the salvation of a nation, so she hid him. The one thing that we must all do is use our skills to hide our anointings and hide our gifts from the enemy. If we allow our children to be exposed to the junk food of our times, they will never come to fulfill God's purpose and will in the world around them. As different ministers were going forth tonight, Bishop Hilliard would point out to me those that he taught in Sunday school as children. And this one was a little boy when I got to know him, and that one, and now he's this, and I didn't say anything, but I'm saying to myself, somehow or another, you figured out years ago how to hide Moses. I just wouldn't tell him because I didn't want him peeping my little text before I got up, because he got a way of just talking and talk right all over into my notes. So I just said, no, I ain't gonna share nothing with him because I don't trust him when he gets up. Once he gets to the microphone, he's anointed. The text says she hid him. The text suggests that she shielded him from the threat of extinction. She hid him for as long as his little cries could go undetected. She put her arms around her child and hid him from the piercing noise and blades of the king's men. And in hiding him, she was able to hide and protect purpose. She hid him and protected his calling as a prophet. She hid him and kept him from the unfruitful life of Egypt. Somewhere in our lives there are young Moses, and we must work overtime to give them covering. I watch your children even when some of you parents aren't looking at them. I talk to children. If they get around me, I start talking to them. I make a big deal over them. I brag on them. I compliment them. I tell them they can be whatever they want to grow up to be. I tell them how precious they are. I tell the little girls, you are so pretty. I tell the boys, man, you handsome. You struck out. Look at you. Just look at you. All the girls are waiting for you to come out the room. He start to blushing. I want him to feel his own sense of worth early. You can't tell the children, shut up, go away, sit down. You're just like your no good daddy. You can't do that. Because once you do that, you've planted a seed, and I don't want to spend a lot of time there. but you plant a seed in him. I don't know how I turned out to be a bishop in the Lord's church, because I was never told that I could be something. I wasn't even told in the public school system. And when I went to high school, they wouldn't let me go to Southern High. They sent me to Bach Technical High in South Philadelphia, to the vocational school. They told me I would never be smart enough to go to college. So they were going to make me work on automobiles. That's an honorable profession. It's an honorable job. Thank God for mechanics, or I wouldn't be driving. I protested, so they took me out of there and sent me to cooking class. For what? In there dressed up in a white uniform with a tall white hat looking like a black Pillsbury doughboy. I didn't want to be there. They sent me to optometry, to make glasses, to grind lenses. And I walked into Dr. Fee's office and said, I don't belong in this school. What makes you think you don't? I said, first of all, I don't belong here because I'm being raised in a poor neighborhood. I'm being raised by a low-down father. I'm being raised in a home with a sick mother. There are 7 of us in the house and there are 20 in the neighborhood. He had 27 children. Daddy was, he wasn't no Rolling Stone. He was something else. Daddy was something else. I said, I can do better. I know I can do better. And Dr. Fee believed me. And the other half is a police officer believed me. I got mad one summer and was outside throwing bricks at the school window, breaking all the windows out. This policeman walked up on me and grabbed me by the shoulders, picked me up off the floor, off the ground. My feet were dangling. I looked back and this 6'5" Italian police officer had me. Said, I'm gonna shoot you today. I nearly wet on myself. He took me